everybody, I'm Soni Grint from HUSQVARNA Viking Sewing Machines, and I'm so excited to be here today with Classic Sewing to do a really fun table runner that has snowflakes embroidered on it. With this table runner, you'll see in the little blue, at the light blue areas, there are some really beautiful embroidered snowflakes. And just underneath, I'm really going to have some fun with doing a special new technique that is called guided pictograms. So I can't wait to get started with you, and we're ready to go. So let's get started with our table runner. You'll find the supply list right here on your project list as well. So it's real easy, and I found that you really want like a kind of a dark blue. We did the blue colors. You could use green, you could use red, you could use really any colors. But with the dark blue and the light blue, we're going to make this little block. So really what we're doing is we're going to make 4 of these little blocks. You want to set up your machine with a regular straight stitch, or with our HUSQVARNA Viking machines, we have a special 1/4 inch stitch, because that 1/4 inch stitch is what you want to use because we're using a 1/4 inch seam. You can also certainly use a great 1/4 inch foot. This has that single needle, so it really helps you when you're actually doing all your sewing. So that's really quite wonderful, all your markings on that. So really, however you want to set up for a 1/4 inch is really, that's the best way. So what you're comfortable with for that. Now, with our dark and our light pieces, it really is simple. We're just going to start by taking our white piece, or this is your sashing pieces, and put it over, and you're simply going to do a 1/4 inch right down there. Flip it open and iron it. And I know a lot of people wonder about ironing. I think it's great to iron to the dark, because that way you're not going to see the colors coming through the white. And then once you get that done, you're just going to go ahead and put your light blue on the white, stitch down there with a straight stitch and flip it open. And once you're done, do your pressing and ironing, and you're going to see right here, it's really great. Just a super easy. You can see how we pressed all the way to the darks, to the colors, so the white won't show through. So we're going to do 4 of these, everyone. So you want to go ahead, and if you want to pause now or whatever, just to do your stitching, that's what we're going to do. But we're going to do 4 of these, and then we're going to get ready for our next step. So I'm just going to switch over here, and the next step actually is to go ahead and make our next block. And so we're again adding a piece of sashing to the edges of our piece that you just made. So it's just, again, that same color sashing. You're going to place it right sides together, and then just go ahead and do your seam. So I think that's really a super easy thing to do. Again, this is a quick project, so you don't have to worry about this taking a long time. You can get this done really fast. So we're going to go ahead and do that next. So again, still using that 1/4 inch seam. So 1/4 inch foot, straight stitch, or again on our HUSQVARNA Viking machines, use that D1, which is actually just a great 1/4 inch seam. So you don't have to use a 1/4 inch foot if you don't need to, or if you don't have that at home. So, all right, let's go ahead. This is going fast, isn't it? It's really cool. I just love the way this is going so quickly. Our next step, and I'm going to bring back up our table runner so you guys can kind of see this. If you look at this, what you're going to see is you'll notice that you see the 4 blocks, but between them, and the sashing, we talked about that already. But what you see is they're flip-flopped, right? There's one on the top with the dark on the top, and then the dark on the bottom, and dark on the top and dark on the bottom. That just gives you more interest, and it really makes for a real pretty runner. So that's our next step, is to go ahead and align that and make sure we have that all ready to go. So I find that it is easier. We already talked again. Here's our 2 of our pieces, right? So we've got 2 of our pieces here. Just going to flip-flop that. And remember, we had already sewed this on. So we have a couple that are already sewed on. But what I'm just going to give you a little tip as I was getting ready to put this all together. And the little tip is sometimes it's easier to line up all of your dark and light pieces, align those first. So that way you know where to put that stripe, right? So notice you've got dark down, dark up, dark down, and then dark up. So that's how it's going to be. So we'll put the dark up. I run out of space here a little bit. But now what you're going to see is now I know exactly where to place all of those pieces. So kind of think that's your best bet, is to go ahead and align those, then put in your dark or your sashing pieces in here. Once you have all those sashing pieces done, this is the cool part. And again, it's really super easy, is you're going to take the sashing for the outside. Now, I kind of like to do the long bit of sashing first. So again, this is what it's going to look like. So I have all of these pieces together. So I've got the blocks themselves together. Then we're going to flip this over. Again, using that 1/4 inch, make that seam all the way down. And you're just going to flip that. So you're going to do the 2 long edges first. Okay, so do the 2 long edges first. And then you're going to come back and do your short edges, right? So you're just finishing up. And really, everybody, you're not doing any mitered corners. You're just making it that easy, that fast. And this is where you can kind of decorate as you want to. And the cool thing about the decoration is we're going to do some embroidery. And I personally like to do the embroidery first before I make my sandwich and put the table runner all together. Some people like to do the embroidery through the batting and the backing. I'm going to say that's completely up to you. I'm going to do the embroidery first, okay? So again, kind of up to you, but I'm going to do the embroidery first and then come back and sandwich it together, all right? So now that we have our table runner all put together, which again, that was really super quick and easy, we're going to embroider a couple snowflakes right in these little light blue areas. So to get ready to embroider, we're first going to need to hoop. So I'm just going to I'm using, the size of hoop I'm using is the 240 by 150 hoop. And this is really a good size hoop. We might be able to get 2 of the embroidery bits in, but I think I'm just going to stick with 1 today so we can really see how this works. I like to use for this kind of a lightweight tearaway stabilizer. That way it's not intense stitches. So because of that, it allows us to do, it's not as heavy on the fabric, I guess. So I like to do that. A little bit lighter weight, like I said, tearaway stabilizer. The interesting thing for me is I call myself a hooper. And what I mean is I like to hoop my fabric. Some people, they like to float their fabric. I've always found that if I hoop my fabric, so I'm just going and hooping this as we're speaking. When I hoop my fabric, it allows, and my embroideries really seem to be super, super nice that way. If I end up, and I'm just unscrewing, giving myself a little bit more room to get my hoop in. There we go. When I float my fabric, especially on tearaway stabilizers, it doesn't always work as well for me. Again, personal opinion, if you like to float, you are welcome to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm just loosening this up a little bit. And you can see that. So I can snap my lever closed. You never want to, if your hoop, like for all of our HUSQVARNA Viking machines, most of them have this connection. So you never want to force that. Notice I kept unscrewing until I got a nice finished area here. So once you're hooped, we're ready to go to the screen and get our embroideries, and we'll put our embroideries right here in this little blue area. So let's go ahead and go look at our screen. So now let's go ahead and get ready for embroidery. I'm going to go from that D1 1/4 inch stitch, which is so nice to work with, to the embroidery mode. And we'll just switch over into embroidery here and choose. There is, in the My Sonnet library, there are lots of different designs. The Designer Epic 3 does hook up to it. We're not connected to Wi-Fi today. So what I did instead of that is I just put a couple really cute snowflakes from the My Sonnet library right onto my USB stick. So you can see them right here. If you have other snowflake designs you want to use, that's fine. But I just fell in love with these. So I'm just going to take one and put it right here. And then let's go ahead and choose the hoop that we're using. So we're going to choose the 240 by 150 Designer Jewel hoop. So there's that. And all I want to do is I'm going to scoot this up just a little bit, because now I'm going to do one and a second. So now I have a total of 3 embroidery designs. And as I'm moving these, you can see how easy it is to align, because my alignment lines were just coming right up. And at that point, we've got our 3 really fun, easy little snowflake designs. So I went ahead and I kind of measured this ahead of time so I know the size that I needed the snowflakes to be. We're ready to stitch out. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the stitch out mode. And with the stitch out mode, I want to go ahead and move my hoop out of the way. And once I do that, I'm going to apply. And now the embroidery arm actually moves into place. And with that embroidery arm hoop in place, or the embroidery arm in place, it says to use the 240 by 150 hoop. And that's the hoop that we had chosen before. We're going to use exact positioning to put our little snowflakes in the placement in our table runner. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose that. And once I have that ready to go, let's go ahead and go back to the hoop so you can see how this exact positioning works. So now we want to go ahead and put the embroidery hoop on the embroidery unit, and it's super easy. This is a brand new, see how I just snapped that right in, and I didn't have to struggle with anything. Brand new embroidery unit for our HUSQVARNA Viking Epic 3, so that's really cool for me. And at this point, we're ready to do our exact positioning. And the cool thing about exact positioning is it's going to make my placement of my embroidery so super easy. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start and bring this whole design over. You can see the hoop moving. Make sure I'm in the right spot. And I think I'm even going to bring that right to the middle of my design. And once, see how that just moved right to the middle of that blue area. And I'm just going to dip down here so I can take a nice look at that. Bring this right to the middle of that blue area. And I can use my little arrows to make sure it's just right where I want it to be. So easy, so fast. Now, when we were talking earlier and when we were working over in the on the screen, I went ahead and I changed to our sensor Q foot. So this is our embroidery foot. It makes it super easy, really great embroidery foot to work with. And I also was able to choose, and I put on some hollow shimmer threads. So it's a really fancy thread, which will make these snowflakes look really, really cool. So once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to go ahead and come back over here and just press my start stop button. So I'll be ready to sew. And just a couple other little things. When you're ready to sew, it's really easy. And you can see I'm just going to let it go here and just get started. And before I go any further, I just want to let you know, I'm going to let you do your embroidery at home. So you don't have to sit here and watch me embroider. What we are going to do, once the embroidery is done, you're all ready to put it all together. So very exciting. So let's go ahead, let you do your embroidery, and when we come back, we'll put everything together. So now that you've finished your embroidery and you've got your top all put together, we're ready to actually sandwich it and sew it all into one piece. So how you do that is really easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take your batting and put that down, and take your topper, or basically what you've sewn, and put that on the batting, but right side up, because what we're really going to do is we're going to sandwich this with the backing. So we're going to set that all on top of one another. And you can certainly trim this all up. So you can trim it so the edges and the batting and the back and everything is all one size. So that often is what people like to do. And once you have that done, you're just going to use your 1/4-inch seam, go right along the edge. So let me move this over just so you can kind of see how this will look when you're actually stitching. So let's do this. There we go. Now you can see that a little bit better. So you can see you've got your batting, your top, and then your back. And when you stitch this, you're just going to sew your 1/4-inch seam. You want to leave a little area, and I would leave probably about 6 inches. So start here, go all the way around and stop here, because you're going to turn the whole thing inside out. And once you get it turned, you definitely want to clip your corners before you turn. If that doesn't make sense to you, you're just going to come along the edge and you're just going to trim off the corner just a little bit. Don't have to do a lot, just a little bit up to your stitching, and then turn it inside out. And guess what? This is really, so fast and easy. You're pretty much done. I'm going to grab the original table runner that we started with. So then once you turn that, you've got it almost all done. There are a couple other things I do want to show you. Is now you want to go ahead and stitch in the ditch along this area here and along that outside edge. So all along the outside edge. This will hold your table runner together, and you'll notice it goes all the way through. So that holds it together. I also like to stitch that outside area, so it just gives it a really nice finish for that. But I don't know if you can see, we've got this little Christmas tree and star here. You can certainly embroider in the big block, but what I did is I used one of the special new techniques on our HUSQVARNA Viking Designer Epic 3s. So we want to show you that here as a little extra piece to finish off your table runner. And when we do that, we're going to go to the machine. I'm going to show you how projection helps with this technique. So please, we're going to reset and just come right back, and you're going to see this great new technique. So now let's go ahead and choose, and I want to show you, we've got a lot of different stitches here, but one of my favorite sets of new stitches, and I'm just going to keep scrolling, keep going and going, are one of our building blocks sets of stitches. And with those building blocks in menu or submenu number 2, these are called guided pictograms, and they're really super fun. You can see the little trees, which is what we're going to use. But what I also want to do is I want to share with you one of the great things about HUSQVARNA Viking. And what that is this great sewing advisor. And with the sewing advisor, you can see there are all sorts of fun things to work with, but I'm going to go into the exclusive sewing techniques, and I'm going to choose those guided pictograms. And this is an instruction on how to actually work with the guided pictograms, which is really, really fun. Touch that again. And when it comes in, you'll see here again, all the instructions step by step on how to work with this, including videos. But what I like to do is sometimes I forget what menu is what. So by choosing the guided pictogram here, it brings up my content for that particular stitch. So I'm going to choose one of the small little Christmas trees this time. So I chose the small Christmas tree. I'm going to close that out. It doesn't look like a Christmas tree on screen, so don't worry about that. It did tell me that I needed to use my projection. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my projection on with my grid. And then I've got this stitch pattern guide that came up. So you're going to see that here in just a moment, because now I'm ready to start sewing my Christmas tree, even though it only looks like a straight stitch. But also notice there is a little question mark up there on the presser foot. That means I want to use one of my specialty feet, and I'm going to use an open toe foot. So let's go ahead and get our machine set up and ready to go to make our guided pictogram. All right, so now we're going to set up for the guided pictogram. And with the guided pictogram, I'm just going to take off my normal sewing foot and set that aside. And I'm going to use the open toe foot. This allows for best visibility actually for the stitch. So I'm just going to go ahead and slip that on, make that really super easy like that. And then with the guided pictogram, I don't know if you remember when we started looking, but the guided pictograms start with a little red arrow, and I know it's going to start this way, and then the top of the tree is going to go over here. So I want both tops of my tree to be in the same direction, so that's going to be really important. So once I have that set, I'm just going to press the Start/Stop button. And when I press that Stop/Start button, it just told me I needed to put my IDT in a certain place, but for this, I don't want to do that. Notice it went ahead and stopped. And on screen, it actually says, before starting to sew the next part, so I just sewed here, it says align. Can you all see? It's a little hard to see, but there's a little guideline that came this way. And so it says align that guideline with what I just sewed. And now you might even see it more because it kind of sparkles with the hollow shimmer thread that we're using. So I went ahead and did that, press Start/Stop again. And all I'm going to do is sew until it stops. And here's my next guideline. So guess what? Let's put that guideline to align with this part of what I just sewed. This is so much fun, and I always tell people when they first doing this, so let's come around here, and I got to remember what the last thing I sewed was, so I went ahead and sewed this, is you have to trust. You have to trust that the machine knows better than you. I always think I'm going to fake it out, but it never works that way. So now I'm back. Let's do it one more time. So again, my tree is forming as we speak. So okay, you can kind of see it starting down here. And now this is the top of the tree, so the angle just changed. So now let's come back, align that angle with the top of the tree. And I hope, oh, I didn't do it right. Oh, that's okay. We're going to trust that I can finish this out. So there we go right there. It's going to come along and sew in and come back and where I just sewed. So back and forth I go to make my little tree. There's my angle again. You get in kind of a rhythm when you're doing something like this. It's really pretty cool. And then two more stitches. And while I'm doing this, what's actually happening is it's actually quilting through my fabric. So there we go, one last stitch, and I'm using my grid to make sure that last little bit of alignment works. It lines right back up. And when I get done, I'm going to go ahead and just pull this out and bring my needle up and then pull out my little guy. And can you see, isn't that tree right there? Isn't it just the cutest little thing? And that is a really neat way to finish out your sewing and actually to quilt through. So I'm going to go ahead and let's just cut that. And you can see, I'm just going to flip it over and you can see how nicely that just quilted through. So that's holding my batting and my backing and everything together. So everyone, aren't you excited about your Snowflake Table Runner with your little extra bit of Christmas trees in that bigger block? So much fun, so easy. And aren't you going to love either making this for yourself for your home or giving it as a gift? What a great fast gift for you. So enjoy your table runner and come back next time. We're going to do a couple more quick projects for you to use.